Hello, so it has been another wet week here on the West Coast. It's been an exceptionally wet spring. Today is actually looking really good. It's actually got blue skies out, and they're probably the first blue skies we've seen for the last 7 or 8 days. I've been out metro checking this morning and also liver sampling as well, checking copper and selenium. I've sort of had a question about what I carry in my carving box. This is my carving box, okay. And it's got pretty much everything that I want to go to a cow that is carving with. The only thing which I don't currently have in here are my clippers and my spray and scrub for epidurals, because I normally clip an epidural, give a site a clean before I actually epidural her, just because you are injecting into the spinal cord. But pretty much this is what I carry to every carving. So, starting off, the very fetching carving gown, waterproof, comes over on the front, seals up along the back, and is very good for keeping out bits of rotten, smelly, or just general gooey calf. What else we got? Lube. Can never have enough lube. I carry three of these, and yeah, generally you want to use at least 3 litres of lube with every carving. The more lube you use, the much easier it is, and the much better it is for the cow. Gloves. So arm-length gloves. I know a few people don't wear gloves because the first time you start putting gloves on, it does really, it is a very different feeling from when you put your hand in compared to gloveless. However, I've done too many smelly, rotten ones now to actually never bother with gloves. I always glove up, even if I know it's a nice fresh one. You never know what you're going to find. And also it's better for zoonosis and biosecurity, from me going to pass on disease to another farm, or particularly if you're having lunch, you don't want to have your fingers smelling like rotten carving. Next, we've got our Pully, and yeah, the two options are really pulleys or jacks. At the end of the day, the personal preference is down to the person. The only reason I use the pulley here is because that's what this practice had, whereas back in Wales I only ever used the jack, which is what that practice only ever had. And carry a few foot chains. So again, you can use chains or ropes. Again, it's all down to different preferences. There's pros and cons. Ropes are a little bit more gentler on the feet than chains obviously are. They are can be a bit hard when wrapped up. However, from a health perspective of moving one farm to another, chains are a lot easier to clean, and so they're a lot less likely to spread disease. Stuff like salmonella and BVD and all those good fun little nasties. I carry a head rope as well. So you probably saw in the last video, which I'll link up at the top. This is really good just to get around the calf's head, and so you can control how you're getting the calf's head out. Again, as we were saying, with all ropes, it's a little bit more difficult to clean than chains, but it is very hard to fit a chain around the head. And I mean, it's all right on legs. I wouldn't want a chain around my head, putting a bit of pressure on there. So I use a rope for the head and chains for the feet. I have a slightly smaller one here. This one is for lambings, just because space is much more limited in use than obviously cows. So I've got a smaller one when I do my lambings. With the pulley comes the hooks, and I've got the hooks here to attach a pulley to firstly the anchor, and also then to attach that to the calf as well. And I have handles. So if you don't want to put too much pressure on with a pulley, or you want to help move the chains in different directions, I use the handles, and yeah, just a little bit of extra grip. and you're able to apply a bit more force than if you were trying to just hold on to the chain itself. Right. I also have my powdered lube. So this stuff is really good. This is just in powder form. It looks a bit like talcum powder, but it mixes with water or the cow's own juices, and it becomes really slippery. And you can rub this where you need it, whether it's on the pelvis or the tail head or around the head, and it just allows you to put lube where you need it. Naturally, needles and syringes. So I've got a few syringes. I've got a few bags of needles. So I've got 16 gauge 1 inches, 18 gauge 1 inches, and 18 gauge 1.5 inches, which I use for my epidurals. Drug wise, I carry an antibiotic. So this is just straightforward penicillin, and that's for any cows who have got particularly rotten calves or are looking crook as well. And this is my wee little tray of drugs. So I'll carry a sedation. This is for cows who are not being entirely cooperative. And generally speaking, if I am going to do a calving or a cesarean and the cow goes down, I make sure she stays down. So if she's down, I sedate her down. I don't want the cow trying to get up and down, up and down, up and down throughout the procedure. Either she stays standing or she stays down, really. So that's a sedation. I also mix a little bit of sedation into my epidural. So this is my epidural, which is a mixture of lidocaine local and xylazine 2% as well. So, and it's for each epidural, it works out about 4.5 mils of local and 0.5 ml of xylazine. I cut that, so I give 5 mils to most cows. Heifers I might give about 4 mils to, depending on the size of the heifer. That's my epidural. I've got my anti-inflammatory and painkiller. That's my long-acting pain relief. This is my oxytocin. So oxytocin is the hormone which clamps down the uterus. In people, they give it at induction, but we only ever recommend giving oxytocin after calving. Otherwise, you get the uterus clamping down actually on the calf, and it becomes a real battle to then get the calf out. So we give this to really get that uterus down, push all the membranes out, and also it prevents it from prolapsing, because a risk factor for prolapse is difficult calvings or big calves, and yeah, oxytocin just helps shut it down, keep it small, keep it in. And clenbuterol, which is a hormone which does exactly the opposite of oxytocin. So this makes the uterus relax. So I use this mostly if I'm doing surgery. So if I'm doing a cesarean, I get the uterus to relax on me, because you can get it disappearing up into the cow while you're trying to suture it shut. I also use it occasionally for prolapses. If she prolapsed overnight and the farmer finds her in the morning and it's been out for a while, it can get really hard and really firm. By giving it clenbuterol, it allows it to soften up again and makes it a lot easier to actually push the uterus back in from the prolapse. So they're my go-to 5 drugs. Now we get on to a bit more of a vetty side of it. So what we do is, if we really can't get the calf out in one go, the 3 options, I guess, is 1, you either put the cow down, 2, you do a cesarean, or 3, you do embryotomy. So a cesarean is obviously surgery where you take the calf out the side. Putting the cow down is pretty obvious. You the cow, and the last one, the Foetotome, is if the calf's already dead, what you can do is you can cut the calf up and take it out by smaller chunks. And so to do that, we pass a wire and we saw it with cheese wire pretty much. So what I've got, which I don't actually have in my box at the moment, is tubing, which I pass into the cow to protect her vagina and the outside, or the inside of her uterus from the wire. I pass a wire using a bull ring. they've got special design tools for this, but I found that they're sort of positioned poorly. They need to be rotated 90 degrees to actually push it, whereas a bull ring is a lovely weight to just plop over where you want to go, and it's easy to find and then pull through should you need it. So this is what I pass my wire with. I've got handles for the wire, so the wire just fits in that wee little crease there, and then there's a screw which shuts it and hold it in place and allows you to saw through it. I carry wire cutters, and these are my packs of wire. So the wire, I don't know if you can see that, is slightly serrated, and yeah, you're really using the sawing motion and the friction that it's generating to cut through the calf. It is a hard workout though, and yeah, I only do that with dead calves. And yeah, any live calves, they either have to euthanize a cow or they have to do a cesarean. They're my two recommendations for that. Other tools of the trade, we've got this barbaric looking thing, which is a hook which again I use on dead calves, and I use it if you can't get hold of anything. So particularly in some dead calves where you put a lot of pressure on, and particularly if they're beginning to rot, you can lose legs, which then means it's very hard to actually grab hold of anything to actually pull out with you. So I use these Kreys hooks to hold on to either through the eyes of a skull, or I've used it in the mandible. So a bit like a fish, just holding on to there and pulling that way. I've also got hold of sides of ribs to pull out that way. You attach the chain or the rope to this end, and by putting pressure on it, that forces the hooks closed, and it gives a pretty good grasp or whatever you try and grasp. Again, I don't use this in live calves because it is pretty brutal. So, and finally, in my box, I carry a guarded knife. So this is obviously a sharpened tool on the inside, and well, your finger goes through and it allows you to go in and cut up the calf from inside without risking cutting the uterus or the cow herself. So I really don't like this design. I don't know if you can see, but whose finger is that big? I mean, that's just a ridiculous sized ring finger. And I found when I'm wearing it, I put it in, it just puts a hell of a lot of pressure on my hand, and it's really uncomfortable. And I don't find it cuts particularly well anyway. The only times I ever use this is if I want to remove a front leg of a dead calf, where I skin or I make a skin incision around the back of a scapula, and that's when I then pass a wire of a scapula and I saw through the scapula and the body wall connection with the wire, and that allows me to take the front leg off. Not a big fan of using one of these. I don't think I've used it once this season, but yeah, I carry it just in case. Yeah, so like I said, what else I carry is my clippers and my scrub for epidurals, and also the tubing to protect the cow's vagina from the wire, which is called a Foetotome. And yeah, that's pretty much what I carry on my basic calving kit. If I was a farmer, and what I would definitely have in my kit would be the gloves, the lube, calving chains or ropes, maybe a selection of drugs, your oxytocin, your pain relief, and your pulleys or your jack to hand as well. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.